areas of the impact study that really allowed us to dig in, come to some conclusions, and also to create an action plan. So I'll give you somewhat of an overview, but I think the best way to get started is to dig right in. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Dora Jones. Hi, Dora.
Hi. Hi, Monique. How are you?
Dora, I would love to get started by hearing your story. Let's talk about mentoring young adults and how you started.
Actually, mentoring young adults has been up and running for 9 years now. We started back in 2006, where I noticed a young lady sitting on a step with her luggage and her bags of clothes, and she was crying. She had nowhere to go. She had just finished out of high school. Her mother and her got into an argument, and she got put out, and so she went to live with her grandmother and friends and found out that that didn't work for her, and she wasn't in college or anything. And so I pulled over and I just said, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" She's told me her story, told me she had nowhere to go. She just finished high school, and so she didn't know what to do with her life. And so I took her under my wing and I said, I'm going to help you. So I took her to my house, and in 10 days I had her an apartment and a job and in school and in college. And then she looked at me a few days later and said, "My friend needs some help too. Can you help her?" And so I decided to go on and help her as well. And then I realized that there was a need to help our young adults transition from childhood to adulthood and try to make that transition a smooth transition for them. However, as I was digging into the work of working with our youth from 17 to 21, I realized 17, if I get them at 17, that's too late, and 21 is not long enough. So I changed the population age to 14 to 25. And then young men were like, "Well, Miss Dora, can you help us too?" And so I decided to say, okay, I'll help men and women. And that's when mentoring young adults came about and was born.
She has really progressed in cutting through, making change, and I'm going to have Dora talk a bit about her programs that she offers.
Well, actually, as I began to dig into the work, mentoring young adults took on a personality of its own. At first, I was just working with the young people around education and employment. And then as I began to dig into that work, housing came as an issue, that we were dealing with a lot of homeless youth. One youth came to me and said, "Miss Dora, I used to work at Subway, and I've been homeless, and I know how to get into Subway's ventilation system. So that's where I go at night, and I sleep in Subway until about 5:36 in the morning when the staff comes in." So I was like, wow, we really have an issue around homelessness with our young people. So I started implementing housing training and working with youth around housing. And then as I began to do that, I realized a couple of young people would come to me and say, "Well, Miss Dora, I can't get my homework done because our lights are out," or "Miss Dora, I'm late to school every day because we live with our grandmother now, and that takes me 3 buses to get to school." So I was like, wow, now I have to start, in order to start supporting our youth, I have to start supporting families around housing to make sure that they are housed properly and stable in housing so they can get a good education and be healthy youth for our community. So we have several different programs in our agency that deals with housing. We do a tenant training class, which basically teaches our people about how to be good tenants, how to build good rapport with landlords, how to avoid unlawful detainers on their record, and how to keep a clean environment in their community. And so that tenant training is for all youth as well as families. Also, we have we pay up to $500 on their deposit, their lights, or their rent. We also work with landlords that work with some of our clients, and some of our clients are hard to place because they have unlawful detainers on their record, felonies on their record, and we work closely with landlords to try to give them a second chance at stabilizing themselves around housing. So that's one area of our organization. Then we also have a women's group and a men's group. And those groups basically are of all ages for our youth as well as our adults to deal with some of the stresses in life. And sometimes they end up being depressed over some of the issues that they're dealing with around homelessness, unemployment, low wages. And it gets to be so depressing. And they actually have nowhere to go to. And so we created a round circle, which we consider a healing circle, to begin to dig deep into the root of our issues and begin to give them a place to heal, and an area of where we can share resources, hug one another, give uplifting conversations, as well as some tough conversations around the table as well. Because I don't sugarcoat the message to our young people as well as our families, that we've got to begin to do better in our own lives and be able to make change in our communities. So that healing circle for our men and women are called our women's group and men's group, and they're held once a week. We also have a youth session that we hold on Saturdays strictly for our young people who are out here in the community, who have nowhere to go, who might end up in some issues in the community with other community members. And to keep down the violence, we try to get in front of the problem as opposed to after the problem. So we deal with those on Saturdays with our young people. We also have an employment program where we do resume writing, interviewing skills, mock interviews, letters of recommendation, and we also begin to implement on how to keep the job. We have noticed that a lot of agencies give these kind of trainings around resume writing, interviewing skills, but one thing that we're forgetting to do is teaching them how to keep the job once they're on the job. That seems to be one of our difficultest processes, is because sometimes when they get the job, then they find people being unfriendly. Sometimes they feel that they've been singled out, disrespected, discriminated against on these jobs, and they end up losing the job. And then when they lose the job, of course, they're going to lose housing because they have no income. So we begin to teach them how to maintain a job and keep a job. So those are things that we work around when it comes to our employment area. And then we also employ young people at that agency around community engagement, leadership development. And that's basically how the organization really began to form itself. Our focus areas are housing, education, employment, leadership development, community engagement, and entrepreneurial skills. We teach them entrepreneurial skills because we understand that everybody's not going to be like Mike. College is not for everybody. We don't want our children to feel that because they didn't have an opportunity to go to college or finish college, that they feel that they're a failure. We don't want them to feel that they're a failure. So we teach them entrepreneurial skills, begin to teach them and train them on how to open up their own business, and get them educated in business areas so they can begin to do that. So we have a range of areas of education. I believe that we need to begin to educate our children outside the bricks of the schoolyard. And when I say that, I mean educating them on how to survive in this life and in this world. We have young people who are jumping off bridges, committing suicide, rather go to jail than be out here in the world. So we have to begin to educate them around all areas of life, so they can be successful in life. So those are that's just a basic bird's eye view of what we do, and how we get the work done.
View of how we came about doing the analyzation on this impact study. So we took a look at the national poverty map, which you look at Minnesota and it really does not look bad. Actually, we look like a model for the country. However, when you dig down into the counties and you wrap those counties around the race demography, it tells a totally different story. And working with Dora, I've been able to really get in to areas and talk to the right people to really find out what is going on in the communities that MYA serves. Why is it that the poverty ratios are high in communities of color? What is actually going on? So I want Dora to really dig into, from her work, 9 years. 9 years. Congratulations.
Thank you. 9 years still standing.
Congratulations on that. So, really let's talk about, so we can look at data and statistics and really go into, and you're going to see an impact study that, of course, gives you all of that. But some would argue that, okay, we have enough data. There's tons of data out there, and it's been out there for a while to show that Minnesota has some huge racial disparities, inequality going on in the communities. But I really want to talk about the communities of where MYA serves, because when you look at the map, and you have to break it down by county, and that's what's significant about the study. When it's broken down by the counties and you look at the demographic in those counties, then you can see where the problem areas are. And they happen to be where MYA serves. So we're looking at Ramsey County, Washington, Dakota, and Hennepin. So I'm going to have Dora share a little bit, because when you are actually reading the impact study, I want you to have in your mind the conversation that you're hearing with someone who has been on the front lines of poverty. And that will then lead us into this discussion on why we named it Disrupting Poverty.
Actually, yeah, Monique, we are a stone throw away from the Capitol, which I think is speaks very loudly for the work that we are trying to get done in Ramsey County. Yes, we work with Ramsey County, Dakota, and Washington County, and Hennepin County with youth. We pretty much have a large range of families and youth that are living below the poverty line, and they actually are getting comfortable with living below the poverty line. And we want to disrupt that. We want to basically change the way they think, change the habits that they do, as far as the type of jobs that they need to be searching for, as far as the type of living that they are living, and the way that they're raising their children. We've got to dig real deep into the mindset of our people to change the way they think about not only themselves, but also the community in which they live, so we can begin to change the demographics around poverty. So maybe I'm not answering that question as well as I can, Monique, but coming from a place of living below the poverty line myself, being raised with a mother who was a single parent after my father was killed at 11 years old. She had to go and get on Social Security and welfare herself. So I come from a place where I know exactly what it's like to not have enough money to do different things, to pay your bills, to send your kids to the best schools, or even have them going to some of the best rec centers in the town because of the fees that they charge. So I understand the families and what they're dealing with and going through. So we have to begin to try to dig deep and change the way not only the people think of themselves, but the way that these agencies and funders and consultants and people that actually work with low-income community agencies like mine, we have to disrupt poverty at every level, absolutely every single level that there is out there, beginning from the ground up, and that means the people up.
Wow, that is that's exactly what we touch on. So, we're giving you a taste of what you're going to see in the study. The study digs deep into the neighborhood, the issues there. Dora's given us a lot of background on her clients and her cases. So profoundly, we've identified in the data. We dig into the data 5 years of data of cases that Dora has handled, that has flowed through. And significantly, the data shows that there's been this exponential jump in cases walking through her door. Dora is also the only agency in St. Paul that takes walk-ins. So we've seen agencies close before that. So I'm going to have Dora touch on exactly what is she seeing. She's seeing this increase. Where is it coming from? And what is MYA doing to increase capacity to make sure that she can handle what's coming through the door?
Actually, Monique, I'm glad you mentioned walk-in because we don't do appointments. We do walk-in cases because when we're talking about critical issues such as housing, homelessness, we have to act with a sense of urgency. We no longer can put them on a waiting list or a meeting list or say we can meet with you in a week or two. These families are critically homeless and they're sleeping in cars with their children. So we have to do a walk-in service and meet these people right where they're at in emergency situations right then and there with a sense of urgency. So we believe in working very hard on behalf of the people. We believe in working very hard on behalf of our young people and our children and our youth. The increased capacity, right now we've been working with absolutely $0 for the last 8 years. Now we're working with maybe $30,000 in every 6 months, which is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to the amount of people that we serve. We're trying to build capacity to move out of the small room that we're in to do the work. We need to build capacity to get the qualified people in there to help with some of this work. Some of our families come in there. They're suicidal. They need counseling. They have serious issues with their children, having ADHD, autism. It is really critical. And excuse me, but when I think about it and talk about it, it hits home so bad because our families need this help. Our agencies need this help. They overlook small agencies that are grassroots, that are absolutely working with these families that's very difficult to work with. Families that want to give up. And I have to do all I can to instill in them life, to keep living, that it's going to get better. And I see almost 15 to 20 families a day that's being referred to us by other agencies, Project Hope, Ramsey County Human Services, mental health. They're referring them to our agency, but they're getting all the money and the funds. We've got to begin to change the way that looks. I'm sorry, Monique.
That's